Why I tried to avoid hanging out with Mexicans when I was studying in Shenzhen University. So, hello, my name is Mar. Welcome to the channel if you haven't been here or if you are a frequent viewer. Yeah, happy to see you around. First things first, I went to study in Shenzhen University and it was not an easy decision to cross like half of the world to go to another like really foreign country, foreign culture to get my bachelor's degree in business and just to get there and find other Mexican people and hang out with Mexican like girlfriends or boys, right? And I think it has to do a lot that it was not my first time going abroad, so I kind of could handle more than others because there's a saying that whenever you go abroad to live, study, like work, expats around the world, you with time will have the cultural shock and you kind of feel the necessity to hang around countrymates and therefore feel comforted with the language, the cultural habits, etc., etc. Let me know if this is your case, either if you're living in China or elsewhere. Where did you emigrated to and why? And did you feel the necessity to find some like countrymates there or not, and why? So my case was like previous to that I had lived also in Italy when I was as young as 16 years old. At that very time I really felt the cultural shock and I was a little bit depressed for a long time. I just thought it was just a very bad decision and I was not feeling comforted because was so far away from home. But after the cultural shock ended, everything just started to feel smoother and satisfying to me, especially as a young 16-year-old girl in Italy. Apart from that, I also had experience living in Singapore for about 2 years of my life during high school, Singapore American School. I graduated from there. And yes, you can't blame me because once again, I emphasize my English is not perfect. Although I graduated from an American school. But it was a little bit too late for me to, get everything right. I just arrived a little bit late on life. Nonetheless, maybe it was on time. However, I just tell you this in order for you to understand that this was not my first time going to another new country, experiencing a new life, a new culture with a different language like Italian, or in Singapore, it's officially English or Malay, Indian. But nonetheless, the cultural differences are huge. So China was not the exception. Although I was already kind of like trained and prepared, or maybe just mentally strong enough to digest it and just focus on what I wanted. So the most interesting thing is that the first time I arrived to foreign dormitory in Shenzhen, I can remember I was a little bit regretful that I came because previous to that I was studying in BLCU, Beijing Language and Cultural University, and the whole infrastructure was so different. Like Beijing was so developed, it's a very big university compared to what was Shenzhen almost 15 years ago. I arrived to Shenzhen when it was like a tropical destination, and I arrived to the dorm and I was just thinking I made a wrong decision. As soon as I saw my room and that everything was like old, not really structured as it was in Beijing. There were big buildings. We had like maids that would clean our rooms every morning. It just felt really different. So I was just really thinking, okay, let's just go back to Beijing tomorrow. But there was this Mexican guy whom I met that same precise day that I arrived. I arrived like around 10 a.m. I remember, to the uni. By that time, I just did my nose job, so I had this strip. And then at night, I met him, and somehow I really felt comforted, to be honest. I must say, thank you very much to this guy, whose name is... I just forgot. Anyways, he knows who he is. And I remember Walter. Okay, this Walter friend of mine really comforted me, as he was Mexican and he was there, and he was also going to study Chinese, and he was just taking me around the university and making me feel somehow safe because of our easiness on communicating in Spanish, as well as he was just like, it's fine, here we have this, here we have that. But let's just state that when I arrived, it was Chinese New Year, so everything was closed. So somehow it felt depressing, like the city felt somehow lonely, cold, depressing, and I was like, why did I do this? However, when I arrived to Beijing, it was the same thing. I remember I arrived to Beijing 17th of February, and I just regret it because of the whole weather thing. That's for another video. So this guy, I met him, Walter, and the next morning he was like, let's go and walk around Shenzhen. I'm gonna show you. There are electronic markets very nearby the uni and so on. So okay, let's go. Next morning, I wish I could show you the picture, my very first picture in Shenzhen. He took me this picture. I remember it was somewhere around like a beautiful Chinese door, and I was like, oh, this is beautiful, could you take a picture of me? And we also took pictures together, and I felt I'm not gonna say I felt home, but I felt comforted, and somehow he gave me this bond or link of like I could be feeling safe and good enough if I stayed in Shenzhen Uni. I'm not gonna lie, I was going to leave the next day to Beijing, and there's an issue about going back to Beijing where I started, but that's gonna be for another video, and therefore I chose to just transfer to Shenzhen Uni instead of BLCU. So we went to the markets, but most of this shops around were closed because of Chinese New Year. He was very nice. He took me to a place to have some meal. I remember we went to the supermarket. He showed me all the place. And I was like, wow, this must be like God sent me a signal somehow of help, because I was in big despair. Like seriously, if you're just someone, 21 years old, deciding to go from your country to Shenzhen Uni, it was my second chance because previously I decided BLCU, and then arriving and feeling like you did the wrong decision, and you feel like such a discomfort of like the whole situation. I felt Shenzhen was really in I not at the level of Beijing. I was like, Beijing is like capital city, super strong, super well established, and Shenzhen is just like a town. That was my perspective almost 16 years ago. Okay, so that was the introduction of how I got to meet him and why did I got to feel so safe the first day I arrived after feeling no. But my decision and my whole mindset was to not go to China to find alike people. I mean, yes, in a way, but not as just to be glued to them, and I'm not gonna go and meet anyone else because I feel comfort and safe with you. We speak the same language. You somehow understand me in regards to habits, on cultural habits, whatever, right? So I felt so great, but that was not to be continued forever, and I will be meeting other Mexicans and just hanging around with them, avoiding the beautiful and very rich experience of getting to know new people there, other cultures, other languages, other habits, right? So as I previously mentioned, because I have been abroad before, it was okay for me to be exploring by myself. I was not feeling lonely or fearful of whatever So the first reason is language. If you go abroad and you want to get to speak the language, the best thing you can do is try to avoid hanging too much. I'm not saying just avoid them, it's not good to be around them. No, you must have also people from your country being friends, having relationship with them, good relationships in regards to like having someone to understand you. But you can also, I encourage you to take the chance, being so far away from home and getting to know other beautiful cultures, especially if I was in China and I wanted to like get to speak Chinese. I was and needed to explore by myself around areas and get to know locals, get to speak the language, because although I had been studying Chinese by that time, maybe for about 4 years, or yeah, it was about 4 years that I've been studying Chinese, like 2 in Mexico and 2 in BLCU. My speaking skills were really like not to the standards, although I could listen and understand a little bit. But I did had to, practice more. This is the main thing. You have to practice, you have to be immersed in the place, you have to just be pushed and forced to speak, to relate with them, to interact. Yeah, it can be uncomfortable in a way, because sometimes when I was in China, so many times, I was in a taxi and I will be like, I want to go there. Okay, let's say in Shenzhen there was this place which is called Windows of the World, and it's called Shi Che Chi Chuang. I believe I'm saying it correct, but maybe the tones are not right. However, some of my friends from Venezuela or other Latin countries will be like, they will just say that, like seriously. As long as, as funny as it sounds, they will just be saying those 4 syllables with whatever sure, and the taxi driver will be, I know where you want to go. And they will try to avoid having communication with the locals because they felt not understood, they felt it was hard, and they will just go back to be hanging around Latin people. This happens so much with the Latin community. I myself was somehow a victim of it in other aspects. I loved dancing at that time, not anymore. I don't look like a dancer. By the way, the other time one guy commented if I was... Okay, I'm not going to mention this. Why would I comment? Maybe another video. I was like, am I looking like such a lady? Anyways. Okay, back to the point. They will hang out with Latin, like Venezuela, Mexico, Colombia. Usually they will be hanging out because they can speak the language. And another very important issue is that some of the, we are America. Supposedly Mexico is part of North America, Canada and USA. And we are more lucky in a way that we have like the USA as a neighbor, and we can have more opportunity to practice English, to have like more vicinity to them, and therefore be more aware of the English language compared to like Venezuela, which is down there, or Colombia. And those people are usually less fluid on English language. I'm not saying I'm fluid. I'm always mentioning how unfluid I am or how non-fluent I sound. However, these people will feel uncomfortable to be pushed there just at once be speaking Chinese, because they came here, they have 0 level of Chinese. I had some level, so we were not in the same kind of league regarding listening and like trying to understand basic words. So they couldn't speak much English, and they could not speak Chinese at all. Some of them just came for business, so they were not so aware or willing to learn the language, because they just wanted to get things done in business. Although, of course, learning a language especially Chinese, to do business is very essential. Let's say now that I'm in Mexico, I can communicate with suppliers there, just writing, speaking, etc. However, this happened a lot. I mean, compared to, let's say, for example, Japanese or Indonesian, that they were very hardworking and they really wanted to get the language. They wanted to study hard. No, I got to understood the Latin community was more laid back. They will just be hanging around and talking in Spanish, drinking, dancing, enjoying, la 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 la, and just going to the classes, but just really not all of them, but maybe 80% of them just like getting passed by. So the first reason it was about language, which is such an important thing I wanted to practice, and because, as I mentioned, I was not a zero level, somehow I had already the basics. I wanted to explore China with the things that I already learned or got from previous studies. Yeah. So the second, and that is also the main reason why they hang out together, because they lacked of the like language skills, so therefore they feel comforted like feeling around Spanish speakers. And the second is I wanted to explore and get to know new friends, like locals and foreigners. And someone also, I always was looking for people that were ahead of me in regards to what I wanted to pursue. Let's say, I don't know, maybe they were making business. There were some Turkish, there were some like Arabs or like maybe Europeans also making some like online sites or companies there. And I was always very curious, and I was like, I want to get to know them, to be friends with them in order to share more valuable information, because I didn't feel I just went all the way to China to hang around Mexicans, to dance with Mexicans, to, I mean, don't take me wrong, but I was just very excited to develop my career and didn't want to waste. I feel like it was a lot of time. I will hang out with some from time to time, but not that much. My best friends were not really Mexicans overall. Third, I didn't travel like half of the world just to feel comforted by being in a Mexican or Latin group, and like not going out of my comfort zone, because it can really mess with you, as you don't really know when you are already on your comfort zone, and after a while it's already the way it is, like it's the group of friends you have, and it's hard to make things like otherwise, because let's say you hang out with them 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 month, 3 months pass by, and it's just hard to, okay, I don't want to hang out with you guys, I want to make some Chinese friends or some other foreign friends, so that's it. No, usually people will just continue doing what they learn at first or feel comforted with, so it's like a cycle, and that is hard to break. Why I say this is not just about Mexicans. Also in the dorm there were some Russians and other nationalities that will be just very glued to their own country mates. Like the Russians will be just with the Russians, the Latins mostly will be with the Latins. It has a lot to do with our own beliefs, mindset, and hobbies. For example, the Latins love to dance, the Russians hated to dance, the men, and they like it to drink, so they will be drinking and sitting the whole evening outside the dorm, and we will be like, why are they wasting their time just sitting and drinking until 4 a.m., 5 a.m.? Like, this is just very boring, just talking, drinking, and fighting. And then I was like, okay, it's better just we didn't drink that much, but I did not drink at all when I went to China. I did drink some alcohol when I was 17, so that's 20 years ago, and apart from that I haven't been drinking anymore, so I don't drink alcohol either. So that's another green point to my self-care. So they didn't drink that much, and they were like having entertainment, like playing music and dancing, compared to like the Russians. If there was no alcohol, they wouldn't consider it as fun. So therefore we had like not many similarities in that regard. So each one of the nationalities will just be placed with their own country mates to feel comfortable enough, and not like, why am I sitting here drinking alcohol until 4 a.m. without music, without dancing, just like speaking or fighting, etc. I mean, that was just an example. There were also other nationalities, let's say like the Arabs will be just smoking shisha and drinking tea or coffee. Yeah, it was just very severe how different we were, and it was not easy to get along with like others. I'm not gonna say I was hanging out around all of them, no, but I will make more friends with the Chinese outside university. Okay, and I also had a very good Japanese friend during that time, but it comes to the other point, which is, okay, after that I wanted the challenge to have the fresh air of learning other cultures and habits. I was very curious, like, oh wow, there's a Japanese girl, how do you guys take care of your skin, what do you guys do, like this and that. And I wanted to make other kind of friends. Another thing is, a very key point here is that I don't eat meat. As I was saying, when I left to China, I was already a vegetarian at that time. I became a vegan after 5 years of being almost 5 years in Beijing and Shenzhen. So I was like, whenever there was like a taco night in the Mexican restaurants around Shenzhen, or a margaritas night, which is like the drink, I was like, I'm not interested. And it's not like I'm so antisocial, or maybe I'm a little bit like that, but I just not feeling eager to go and spend, let's say, okay, I had to buy the ticket, I'm not gonna like eat any taco, and there will be nothing else for me to eat. And if it was a margaritas night, I don't drink even the alcohol or the beer, so why would I pay once again ticket just to hang around with them? And maybe people will be a little bit tipsy or drunk, and I will not feel comfortable around that environment because I'm sober. So I just didn't join any of these parties. So maybe also because of this, the Mexicans didn't like me that much, I feel, somehow, because I was not hanging around them. Once again, it has to do with habits and how you feel comfortable. Like I was just saying, like the Russians will feel comfortable having their bottle of vodka, and we will feel comfortable having a little bit, but they feel comfortable having a little bit of beer or whatever, and I'll feel comfortable with music and dancing at that time. And I wasn't feeling comfortable like just going for the margaritas night or the taco night, because it was not my style, and I was not gonna do anything just to like fit in. This was not like at all my kind of mindset. And by the way, that was the reason I ended up going and finding my vegan community in China, and also vegan business community. There were so many like business alike persons that I was so interested in, and became friends, as well as YouTubers, and like overall like the vegan family in Shenzhen, in Guangzhou, where I will feel more comforted because I will feel they relate, or the healthy fam, compared to just this kind of like night outs of usually like the Mexican gatherings around Shenzhen restaurants. Maybe that didn't give me a good face in front of them, because it felt somehow I was like avoiding them, or not friendly to get to go to these gatherings. However, there is another point. When I was in Shenzhen as a student, I didn't like to sleep late, so I didn't want to stay up at night. I wanted to get my good time sleep. And I was always waking at 5 a.m. when I live in China every day. Nowadays, I still wake up at that time. Sometimes I don't stand up at that time, but it's my habit. So I didn't feel good sleeping late, going out so late. And there is another thing that, yeah, maybe this is the last one. The last one thing here is that I didn't want to, like, some of the men in that Mexican group or Latin group were like Latin lovers, and because I was a young beautiful lady 15 years ago, they kind of wanted to flirt with me. I got my water today, and I was not feeling comfortable with that, especially that I didn't came all the way from Mexico to be with a Mexican. I mean, I didn't like them in the first place. So if they pushed things even further, I was like, oh, I'm so annoyed. And especially if I go to these margaritas or tacos night, I just don't want them to have this feeling of, yeah, I'm just letting them pass by my limits in regards to, like, how to say, okay, whenever they had these gatherings, maybe people will be just tipsy, dancing around, kissing, whatever. Okay, that was not of my interest. It was not of my interest to get around anyone and just casually letting anything happen, especially if it was from my country, Mexico. That was a no. That was like a very, very, very sure thing I had in mind from when I left my country or when I arrived to China, because it was like, no, unless of course it was someone like me, a healthy mindset and all that. That doesn't have to do with a country tag. Of course, I'm not gonna like despise them at all. But at that time, people were young. Come on, they were like 20, 22. Nobody was really thinking about marriage or anything serious. So at opposite, they were thinking everything about everything not serious. So I was not gonna be the one being on their mouths as a gossip, because usually these Latin men or Mexicans and Colombians, whatever, they will hang out together just to be gossiping about how many girls they ate during the weekend, how well their Shanghai is looking, how great it is to be doing whatever and whatever with this Chinese other one girl. And I was like, this is just disgusting. I want to avoid this talk or avoid being talked by them, and just like, it's not, you know, if you have been following my channel by this time, you must know kind of my style of life, and also maybe my style of ideal guy, but it's nothing like this, like a Latin lover or a player. So I really wanted to avoid gossip and also complaining, because so many times that we complain about how these Chinese do this, they are so annoying, or this, that. I had already passed through a little bit of a cultural shock towards like Chinese people in Singapore, although they are not the same, but in a way, like, I got to understand this culture a little bit. So there was nothing for me to be shocked about. Previous to me living there, I had been going to China for 2 summers, each summer 1 month. So I was over that. Like the part of complaining, how they speak, how they do, how they, like, it's over. I wanted to get things done, and I was a goal getter. So I just felt it was losing time. Yeah, laughing, complaining, they're flirting, just playing around, or even cursing. As you have may have seen around my videos from even 10 years ago till now, I don't like cursing, not in my language, not in other languages. If I don't like cursing, I don't even happen to think of like cursing words. I mean, so I don't get to speak them because I don't even get to think about them. So this was just something annoying for me to also be standing people that will be cursing, not just in my language, let's say others from the UK or whatever. I will just try to avoid those students, foreign students, that were just complaining, cursing. I was like, okay, you are losing the time here. We have like things to do. It's China. Like 15 years ago, it's like the golden era. Why are we complaining? Things do the Chinese do what they do. So what? And yeah, gossip, complaining, and just cursing was not something I was interested in. Not just about Mexicans, whatever kind of like culture or nationality there. Let's say Russians or even Arabs. Arabs also spoke a lot, sit down. No. And I was not interested in dating them. I mean, specifically Mexican men. So therefore, I was not like such in a hype to be to form part of these gatherings. So I hope you had better understanding about why is that I avoid them. Although I'm not saying they were bad people or anything, I just had somehow different and still have some different interests regarding basic habits like eating habits or like even sleeping habits. I like to get my good time sleep at 11:30 because Chinese say that's good for the skin. And yeah, or just like playing around with people, having casual encounters. No, that was not just, and it's still not my thing. Give this video a thumbs up and feel free to check out the links down below. I just created a new email, so if you are interested in contacting me for any kind of situation, if you have some business that you want to get done in Mexico or China, there is like my contact info down below, WhatsApp, WeChat, and now email. Yeah, see you on the next one.